and we are alive and well in the greater Chicagoland area. How are you this evening, Barrett?
Well, I am doing well. I'm feeling pretty well. I have just a little bit of congestion from a cold that I'm basically pretty much over. So I'm feeling good. Glad that that's mostly behind me, and glad that we're connecting again tonight.
Yes, it has been an odd summer all the way around, and I think we've got a lot of mold going on this year, a lot more than normal. So, what appears to be a cold may, in fact, just be a reaction to spores that are out there trying to proliferate. And when we snort them up, they make our life bizarre.
Well, I suppose that sounds like a science fiction movie, Spores Attack.
Yes, actually, we may have to work on that as a screenplay,
Sure, yeah.
collaboration here.
Little side project. I like that.
It would be fun. I know for me this week I've been, especially the last couple of days, running around trying to get everything assembled for our carnival event at St. Gerald's. The parish is one that my kids attend, and my grandson went to the elementary school there and is now getting ready to graduate high school. But it's an amazing parish. And about 4 years ago, they added a huge gymnasium at a cost of over $1 million. And within that, we've been using the carnival as one of a multitude of events to pay off the debt. So it'll probably knock down 40 or 50,000 over a 4 day span here, because the parishioners support all of these activities. They bring their toddlers and their teenagers, and they show up and ride the rides and play the games and eat the bratwurst and hamburgers. And I think that is really a beautiful example of what the course uh, puts out there. That idea of community. And if we are participating with any kind of community, whether it's a church or some other service organization, it is a step in the direction that the course is trying to get us to pay attention to, where we drop that sense of self and start to invest in a selfless endeavor within our community and recognize the oneness of what it is that is trying to be accomplished. So for me, this has been a great adventure, and I'm running around with sacks of onions and 600 loaves of bread and that sort of thing in the back of the car. But ultimately, it is an event that is designed to bring us together for a little bit of fun and also to accomplish something that is meaningful for the community.
Yeah, I think that really reflects the idea in the course that the ego's motto is one versus another, and the Holy Spirit's motto is together or not at all. And that we're all in this together. And I think these displays of kind of community building or working towards the common goal are beautiful reflections of that spiritual truth that we are all in this together. And if we think we can make spiritual progress at someone else's expense, or any kind of progress really, we're just fooling ourselves, because as we get this idea more and more that we are all one, that there is no separation, then how we treat anyone is how we treat ourselves. And why wouldn't you want to help yourself? Why wouldn't you want to give yourself a boost along your path and support on your journey? When we look at it that way, it kind of changes the whole picture.
It does. And, one of the things that really stands out when you are involved in participating in this sort of an adventure is that you recognize an incredible amount of strength that normally is not there in your life. Because when you're functioning as yourself, you've got this tiny little ego that is constantly, running and dodging as the bombs go off all around it. But when you start to join community, you start to recognize that there is a force that is what you are participating in that is going to overwhelm any smallness. And, in the Course, it talks about the magnitude of the Son of God. And it says the Holy Spirit can hold your magnitude, your bigness, your awesomeness, clean of all littleness, clearly and in perfect safety in your mind, untouched by every little gift the world of littleness would offer you. So I think that's really, another side effect is not only when you're participating with community, but when you are consciously turning that over to the Holy Spirit and affirming that God is in the midst of these activities, you really start to feel a sense of power that normally we are divorced from.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm just having like a Star Wars experience here. And, talking about the Force and the power that we have. And, there's a Star Wars movie coming out later on this year, which, nerds such as myself are very excited about. So, but there's some really great messages in those movies that really connect with the idea and the Course that we are all one. And, I think there's this sort of story arc through the first three movies where Luke Skywalker, finds his purpose and he achieves his mission. And I think that story arc kind of represents all of us. There's the archetypal hero's journey that we're all on, and the hero has to sort of go into the dark cave and face his fear. And when he does that, he actually comes out in a place he couldn't have really imagined at the outset. And that's our journey. Our journey is that we're kind of feeling small. We're kind of feeling like struggling in different ways, and then we go on and we face our demons, and we realize they didn't really have the power we thought that they did. And the culmination of all that is that we're surrounded by friends, and we're in a much happier place. And I think when we remember that, it kind of makes us a little excited, like, oh yeah, I want to do this. So yeah, thanks for bringing up the Force, because that triggered all that for me.
Very cool. And I was there for the opening up in Seattle. I went to the opening or the premiere of the movie when it premiered in Seattle back in the 1970s. Probably before 80% of the people who are watching the video that we're creating right now were even born. But at the time, it was such a grand adventure, and there was such a huge amount of insightful material embedded in that first journey with Luke, where he is literally awakening to his own identity. And what's really interesting is that I can look back when I was in my teens and what my vision was as to where I was going and what I was going to be doing with my life. And now on the threshold of 70, I am kind of astonished at all the twists and turns and bizarre outcomes, and yet you can see within that a new sense of purpose that has emerged in my life over multiple decades of searching and struggling, because we really are, until we connect with spirit, we are really like Sisyphus. We're climbing that mountain with a boulder on our back, and it gets to be very tedious. So yes, the Star Wars saga, I'm very excited about the next adventure also, although I guess there's a lot of rumblings about the fact that the clones are showing up as multiple ethnic identities, and the purest of the Star Wars clan are screaming, this is a foul, this doesn't work, we've got to have the clones all look the same. So
Hmm.
isn't that interesting? Once again, dissension raises its ugly head.
Yeah, it wouldn't be this world if there wasn't disagreement in some way, right?
Exactly. And so the end of doubt in chapter 15, that's an interesting passage to look at. The thing that I like about that is that it reminds us that in truth, we are never limited to our physical identity. It says, what holds remembrance of God cannot be bound by time. No more are you. For unless God is bound, you cannot be. An instant offered to the Holy Spirit is offered to God on your behalf. And in that instant, you will awaken gently in Him. So, once again, we're going back to this arriving at the place where we have tamed our personal dragons, where we have stilled the mind and brought it into a state of surrender. And at that precise second, when we have completely forgotten the body, when the body is so far away from our attention that we slip out of it, that's when we have this magnificent infusion of magnanimity, of magnitude and expansion. So then the force is truly with us.
Oh, that's great. That is great. You've said so many different things that keep bringing up things for me. And the other word that's kind of bouncing around in my head right now is Sisyphus. This this struggling character that is always trying to go up the hill, but as soon as he gets to the top, the boulder rolls back down to the bottom, and he's got to start over and over again. And Ken Wapnick has a great book on that, and it's titled Sisyphus as Every Man, and talking about our common struggles here in the world and how we can ultimately step beyond them and back into that sense of happiness and unity. So, there's just so many rich ideas here that really help us along our journey. And I think one of the reasons why the Course is such a long book is because we have so many different objections to love. We have so many different ways that we're defended against that deeper truth. And so we have all these different versions of how we can step into that sense of peace, and different words that kind of reach different people. I think everyone I've talked to has a different favorite part of the Course, or a different favorite few lines that stand out for them and that they use when they're having a tough time. So I think all these different ways of sharing it just kind of hit in slightly different ways to help us along our path. Yeah.
Well, and the one thing that the Course reiterates, and it is stated on multiple occasions, if you get nothing else out of the Course, if you can utilize that one simple thought, I am as God created me. Wow, what a powerful, powerful force that you unleash every time you make that simple statement. Because when we go back to that moment of creation, when God was in his, or its essence of expressing itself, since there was nothing else but God, the only thing that God could reference was itself and reproduce itself. And since God dwells in eternity, that reproduction process in actual fact played out in infinitude. So what an amazingly powerful vision that sets loose in our own consciousness when we realize that we are God in expression, and we exist in infinitude throughout eternity. Boy, that's an astonishing concept.
Kind of blows you away a little.
It absolutely does. And
The best.
ultimately, ultimately, I think that then we become terrified
Mm,
at the possibilities of, who and what we actually are, because our ego suddenly is eliminated and goes into meltdown mode because it's limited by boundaries, by the contour of the body, and by the fire hydrant at the end of the street. Everything is boxed into a form, and when we step into that realm of formlessness, it just it blows the ego's mind, and sometimes that can be a very good thing because it gets us out of the mud hole.
yeah, sometimes it takes a kind of dramatic break or big step away from our old mindset in order to kind of release us into what is really true. And there's another section here in the course that speaks to these same ideas. This is in chapter 14 on page 290. It says, "There is no substitute for truth, and truth will make this plain to you, as you are brought into the place where you must meet with truth. And there you must be led, through gentle understanding, which can lead you nowhere else." So here he's really talking about the inevitability of us finding our home in God. It's not just like a maybe. It's really, there's nowhere else we can go. We might seem to wander around in circles for a while longer, but our return back to that happiness isn't really in question. And he continues, "Where God is, there are you. Such is the truth." So sometimes these really short sentences are among the most profound in the Course. Where God is, there are you. There's no difference. There's no meaningful distinction between you and God. There's only a realization that there really are no boundaries. As you were saying, there are no limits. And, that state of total openness is something that can engender fear, as you were saying too, because it's the end of the ego. And the part of us that is identifying with the ego doesn't want to let that go. The last obstacle to the peace of God is the fear of God. It's not something else. It's the fact that we're actually afraid of having that experience. Over and over, Jesus talks about how powerful our mind is, and what he's saying is we could really have anything that we want. So the question is, well, why don't we have that peace all the time? And it's because we're afraid of returning to it. If we weren't afraid, then we would already be back there. But we do need to be gentle with ourselves and acknowledge that fear, because it's seeing the falsity of that fear that allows us to let it go. And that is the return of the state that's never really been absent, but it has been absent from our awareness. And that's the state of total joy, total grace, and total peace.
And that really is the core of all spiritual teachings. The unfortunate imagery that's been given to us through Christianity and actually, a lot of other religious doctrine is that God is vengeful and God is given the same kind of warped personality that our ego has. And in fact, once we start to have that realization that God is the totality of love, as Jesus and all of the other great prophets have, remunerated over and over and over again, or reiterated, pardon me, then we start to take those first steps back to allowing ourselves to enter into that union with God once again. And so that's really the core of A Course in Miracles, is getting us to that point where we have looked at our fears and learned how to laugh at it.
Yeah, as the course, as the text itself wraps up, the last section is entitled "Choose Once Again." So once we see those options, there's another place he says, "Would the choice between miracles and murder be hard to make?" When we see what it is we're really choosing between, there's not really any choice. It's very obvious. It's only when that choice is hidden or unclear that we would make a faulty decision. So as we kind of clear away the cobwebs of our fear and our shame, we're seeing the light that's shining in us more and more clearly. And as that just takes the fore, we're like, yeah, well, I want the love.
Exactly. And I am willing to sacrifice something that is actually nothing. That's the other little edge around this whole discussion, is that when we release the ego, we're releasing something that really never was and never will be. And so that makes it even easier to allow the ego to just dissolve from our consciousness.
Nice, nice. Well, that feels like a beautiful place for us to end it for tonight. So I've really enjoyed connecting with you as always, Chris. There's such a beautiful, heartfelt connection here.
It absolutely is. And hopefully, as we advance toward autumn, we'll be showing up in different adventures where people can come and join us and join our discussions, and we can harpoon each other's egos.
They're ripe for the picking.
Absolutely, yes. So we'll get Moby Dick resolved here in one fell swoop.
Take that, English teachers for the last many decades.
Exactly. Well, Barrett, have a fantastic weekend. It's going to be bright and sunny and summery, so get out and enjoy. And you have an event this weekend, right?
Yeah, I've got some great events. One on the Course in Miracles this Saturday morning. Anyone here in the Chicago area is welcome to come join us. You can find all the details on my website, which is barretthedeen.com. But there is an online version too. So if you're interested in that, please just sign up by Friday so that I can get the information on how to log in to you in time for the event. So yeah, it's going to be in the preface of A Course in Miracles, which is such a beautiful intro to everything that the Course is teaching. It's like a distilled nugget of joy and beauty. So it's going to be a great event.
Absolutely. Well, I will chat with you in a week and probably interact with you at some point, hopefully in the next 10 days here, as we continue to progress on some of our own little adventures that we've got coming up that we're going to be plotting around.
Yeah, I look forward to many more adventures with you, Chris, and have fun at the carnival this weekend.
I absolutely will. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, Chris.
Bye.